In every man's life, there comes a time when a terrible, mysterious condition emerges, seemingly without warning. It's not male pattern baldness, or the relentless pursuit of dad jokes. It's cable hoarder syndrome. Does he really need that old Apple 30 pin cable? Probably not. But he'll never let it go. Why? Because you never know. Join us as we delve deep into the wild, wire-filled jungles of every middle-aged man's basement. Unlock the mysteries, the tangles, and unspeakable horrors of cable hoarder syndrome.
It's not a problem, I might need it one day.
Cable hoarder syndrome. It's more tangled than you think.
Well, I'm not going to talk about all the cables I have because that might be very boring, but I'm going to show you the ones I care the most, the ones I like the most, and that I don't really want to get rid of. The first cable I want to start talking about is this one. This is an RG45. Basically, the format is like a network cable. It looks like a network cable, but it isn't. It's a rollover cable that I used to connect to a Cisco router. And for that, basically what you do is connect this here, and this convert that into a serial port, a DB9 serial port. This is a serial port to USB converter. You connect this other part on a Cisco router, and you can access through a terminal from your computer, a terminal emulation, and you can configure the router like that. It's common cable, but not used anymore as far as I know. But anyway, I like it. It reminds me from an old time. It's kind of a weird thing to have for some people to see it, but yeah, this is one of my favorites right now, which I always skip. This is another cable, which basically is a mini USB-A, and this is output. I think it's video and mono audio. I have no idea. This is from a camera, I think. I don't know if I need it anymore, but it's important to keep it. Then you also need a SCART cable, which is something that was usually used on TVs back in the day. If you have one, you also need to have two, just in case one is broken and you cannot find another one. And if two weren't enough, then you need to have three of them. And this one in particular is very cool because it has, from here you can access all the different components that are part of the SCART connector. SCART stands for this thing you see here in French, which basically means Radio and Television Receiver Manufacturers Association. It's a very useful thing to have if you're connecting this to an old TV or an old VCR. This is another cable I care about. It has audio components out and video out, and this is a DIN connector that can go to different old computers. In this case, if I remember correctly, I know I can plug this into a Commodore 64 and get the audio and video out. Of course, the audio is going to be mono, so it's most probably going to be with these two together, it's going to be the same output. I didn't test it, so I'm not sure. Then of course a PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 audio output, which you have here the audio components and the video. A VGA cable. This is very important because in case you have an old monitor, or even if you don't have it, doesn't matter, it's good to have one of these old VGA cables. Something a little bit more modern is this USB-C to DVI video output. Many monitors still come with a DVI, and you can connect this output from a USB-C from a PC or a Mac. This one, this is a USB to just power output here. In case you want, for example, to power your plasma ball, then you can use it for that or for any other toy or thing that you might need some power. This cable here, I'm not very sure what it is for. It disconnects directly to a Commodore 64 video audio output, but you can also connect to other computers of similar time. And this is a S-video output, so probably some sort of conversion there. Anyway, I just keep it. It's important to keep it, even if you don't use it or even if you don't know what it's for. And here you have HDMI to DVI, similar to the other one, in case you have a HDMI output and you need to connect it to a monitor that only has DVI input. This looks like a normal network cable, but it isn't. This is a crossover cable, and what it does is that you can connect through the network point to computers or to switches. So usually if you want to connect two computers through a network, you have to connect one computer to one switch and the other one to the same switch. But if you only need to connect the two computers between them or two switches, you can use a crossover network cable like this one. It has been ages since I used this, but anyway, it's important to keep it. This thing here, basically you connect this part to an iPhone. This is a lighting connector, and then here you connect to HDMI input in a monitor, and the USB here is just to power it with some power, basically. And so you can display the image of your iPhone into a monitor, any monitor that has an HDMI input. Always have extensions. In this case, well, this is for anything you want, usually audio or anything, basically RCA extension. This is an audio microphone extension, basically, which is called a TRRS cable connector. So you have like audio, stereo, and then there is a microphone and then the ground. So you can use this, for example, to connect it to some devices that have the headphones and the microphone as well integrated. Then you have this cable here, for example, that what it does is it takes this TRRS cable and outputs the components. Basically, you have the audio on one side and the microphone on the other. Then this typical jack to RC cables, which basically takes the audio from here and you have the output in the two RC, and then the other way around, where you can also plug these ones here, and then you have the jack here, and then you can create the loop of doom, which is completely useless what I'm doing here right now. And this is basically the same, but it looks really cool. This cable here, basically you connect to an old iPad or iPhone like this, and here you have an S-video output. Never use it, I will never use it either probably, but it's important to keep it. This is a cable for connecting the RC antenna output of the Commodore 64 to a TV. Basically, if you have a Commodore 64 or any other computer of the time that had a similar way of connecting, it's important to have. This thing here, this is for a PlayStation video output, as you can see here, and what it does, it has this little converter and converts that into an RC antenna output, and some old TVs also have this kind of connector to connect the antenna. I have a very old one that has this one. This thing here basically converts your PS2 mouse to a serial mouse. So basically this is old and this is even older, ancient. So if you have a PS2 mouse and you need to connect to a serial one, you can use this converter, something that I used in the past, long time ago. I'm sure I will probably never use it again, but I will never throw this thing away. Another of these mysterious cables here, again, this thing connects to the same port of the Commodore 64, but I don't know if it's meant for that. And it has this jack connector here. I really have no idea what is this for. I think, if I remember correctly, that I used this to connect to a cassette from an old computer, not sure. Normal network cable, but this is a little extension. Basically, this is a USB 3 extension. So if you have a USB 3 cable, you just plug this here and you have a little bit of an extension. Sometimes, let's say that you can plug here like a pen drive, and then you connect this to the computer. That could be very useful. Also, this is a USB-C to USB-C, but this one is 90 degrees. USB-C to USB-C extension, in case you need that cable to be even longer. Then this cable here connects the Amiga monitor output to a SCART, and here you have the audio. This is very cool. Also, it's important to have something like this, which basically you connect the SCART to the TV. You can select input or output depending on what you're gonna do. You can put S-video, you can put video and the audio from another device, and so you can connect that to the TV. Jack and jack, basically some devices have that you plug this into the computer and the other one into that device, and you have some microphone audio communication whenever it's useful. Keep it. Especially, for example, let's say that you have a computer we have an audio input and there is another device that has an audio output, so you can connect these to, for example, a Walkman, and these directly to a computer. And this typical cable, which is a USB-A, USB-B, basically it has been used a lot for printers or other devices. For example, I use this one to connect to an Arduino. Also, I connect this one to connect a Raspberry Pi to a 3D printer. If you have something like this, don't throw it away. You never know when you might need it. typical RJ11 telephone cable. Keep it, you never know, one day you might have a telephone or a fax and you need this thing. This cable here again has a DIN connector, but this one is one I used for connecting an MT Olivetti old computer to its cassette recorder. So you can save the games into the cassette. I don't have that cassette recorder anymore. Some cassette recorders of the time had these sort of inputs, so you can use them with some computers that were compatible. Also, we need power cables like this one. This is the type C13, which is used very commonly in many computers. And why do you need one when you can have 7? And don't forget to have the European version and the American version of it. Speaking of which, when I used to live in Japan, I still keep this one here, which is for an American type connector. This is so practical. You have this part here that rotates, and then you have these other 3 ones, which are all flexible, so you can just, in places where you cannot put a power strip, you can use this. So basically you plug it here and you have your extension. And this is cool because in the wall you can put it there and then turning like 90 degrees. This is really great. And also these tiny extensions here as well. These are very, very cool. Also, let's not forget to have the different types. For example, the C5 Mickey Mouse one. Obviously the American counterpart, and finally the C7 type. Also, if you travel, like in my case, I live in the UK, so I have an European style plug here, and then I have a versatile multi connector here, so when I go to Europe, so I can just keep plugging my stuff in there without need a converter for every plug. The other way around as well, if I had several European connectors and I want connected to these to a UK outlet, so I have these here. Don't turn off. And finally, plain electric cable, because if you don't have enough cables, you can also build your own. Last and not least, I have no idea what this is for. This is clearly something to get audio in, and Sony, I think maybe it is for a Sony Walkman of some kind, some Sony output device that you can plug this into a device and then you connect these to your headphones. I have no idea. I don't have that device. I probably will never have it, but I will never, ever throw away this cable. That's mathematical. That's a fact, because I will never know. One day you need this, and imagine how you're gonna replicate or use a connector like this. No idea. Let me know in the comments if you are also part of the team of the cable hoarders. Thanks for watching.